Day 893 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 584,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 1,180 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 6 tanks, 31 APVs, a whopping 69 artillery, and 68 light vehicles, some of which are two-wheelers, hashtag two-wheel army, and I'll be sure to show you one of those later. Then to a brief look at the territory of control calculations, because since displaying these figures 7 days ago, Russia has made certain Pokrovsk sector advances in the southern Donbass region. And perhaps the most simplified approach to reading these figures is paying attention to the bottom two figures. For instance, second from the bottom, I'll mention that this time last week, Russia had occupied 10.84% of Ukraine. Specifically, that's land gains after the full-scale invasion on Feb 24th. Whereas this week, the total percentage figure has just eclipsed itself on 10.85%. Which means Russia's full-tilt summer offensive campaign has gained them 0.01% of Ukrainian land in the past 7 days. But to put that in better context, as within that same space of time, they lost 8 or 9 air defense systems and vast quantities of manpower and heavy armor, all in a week's work for the AFU. So it's all at the cost of Russia's own demilitarization. Russia is really in dire need of someone from accounts to check the value proposition on this war. Then headed to the map, as just days after F-16s were spotted in Ukrainian skies over Lviv, in the far, far west of the country, President Zelensky officially announced that the F-16 fighter jets had arrived in Ukraine, as the aircraft were showcased during Air Force Day celebrations in the country, where Zelensky also stated that the jets are already being used by Ukrainian pilots for combat missions. And some of the photography at this event was just breathtaking to see. Really well stylized. But it wasn't just the photography, as there was no shortage of footage at the event, as F-16 flybys occurred in the capital of Kyiv, but also found in the southern port city of Odessa as well. Zelensky expressed pride in the Ukrainian pilots mastering these advanced jets and thanked partnered countries, including Denmark, the Netherlands, and United States, for their support. Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrsky, stated that the F-16s will lead to, quote, more downed missiles and planes used by Russian criminals to attack Ukrainian cities. Now, as for the armaments, Ukrainian F-16 fighters have arrived equipped with advanced features, enhancing their combat capabilities. Take, for instance, the jets are outfitted with Joint Helmet Mounted Cueing Systems, or JHMCSs. Those sights allowing pilots to see important flight and targeting information right on their helmet visor, making it easier and faster to spot and engage targets by simply looking at them. This system replaces traditional heads-up displays, significantly improving targeting efficiency. Also, the aircraft, formerly part of the Danish Air Force, come with nose-mounted searchlights for night interception missions. These 450-watt searchlights, positioned on the port side below their cockpit, are standard on Danish and Norwegian F-16s. And so Ukraine's F-16s are also armed with a mix of air-to-air missiles, including the AIM-120 AMRAAMs and AIM-9 Sidewinders, used for short and medium-range air-to-air combat, such as for air defense and enemy aircraft. And to top that off, the jets also feature the PIDS Plus Pylon Integrated Dispensing System, which houses infrared countermeasures, radio frequency countermeasures, and missile approach warning sensors, which all amounts to a highly integrated self-defense system designed by Denmark's Terma AS, Aerospace and Defense Company, and has been widely adopted by many European air forces. So all in all, the introduction of these jets represents a crucial step in modernizing Ukraine's air force, which has relied on Soviet-era aircraft up until now. Then headed to the Russian map, as not long ago after my upload from yesterday, We saw the case of a significant fire that broke out near the Russian port city of Azov in the Rostov region. The blaze was producing a massive column of black smoke which was visible from neighbouring cities. The officials provided reasons for this event as, firstly, official sources from Russia's Ministry of Emergency Situations claim the fire started from burning trash and tyres, although other government sources seem to suggest it was from a grass fire that got out of control and spread into a lubricants factory. Always with the lubricants factory excuse, which is a likely cover to a munitions production plant. And so this incident follows the recent attack on the Morozovsk airfield, where Ukrainian military intelligence has published additional satellite imagery that reveals the aftermath of the Ukrainian drone strikes on the night of August 3. In particular, the ammunition storage warehouses were destroyed, all of them, from the one location, which would then certainly account for all of those secondary explosions we saw the other day resulting from that event. The imagery also appears to confirm from an earlier Russian source that another Su-34 jet was damaged in the attack. Then headed back into the Ukrainian map today as a missile strike has been reported in the occupied city of Luhansk in eastern Ukraine. The attack appeared to target two significant locations, the Higher Military Aviation School of Navigators and the Luhansk Machine Building Plant. Approximately 12 explosions were heard and a fire has broken out at the machine building plant. Now, Russian telegrammers were speculating that the strike may have been carried out by Ukrainian F-16 fighter jets. However, this claim is likely premature or inaccurate given that Ukraine has just received the jets, and add to that, more reliable reports suggest that the attack was likely conducted using British Storm Shadow or French Scalp cruise missiles, which is something that the new F-16 jets would need technical adjustments for the integration of. But perhaps the larger point here is that whether or not an F-16 was involved, the blow to Russian military morale due to the introduction of such jets, not to mention all of the fear that goes along with that, can really have the tendency to put the occupying forces on edge, affecting their focus on their duty, instead taking a more defensive posture, which is exactly what happened when Russian tanks started rolling up with makeshift shoebox or shed metal sheeting installations, as the Russian army placed a great deal of their attention on inefficient and time-consuming interventions like these to protect against Ukrainian fielded quadcopters. Then headed just across to Chasiv Yar in the front right there adjacent to Luhansk, as after initially grabbing a foothold in the Zovt-Nevyi district, which is accessible really only via one of two entry points, Russians were pushed back over the canal. Then as a result, Russians were attempting to push into the same district over the bridge at the second southern entry point, but until now unsuccessful, with that bridge acting as something of a choke point for any invading force. And it's sometimes handy to see the satellite imagery of the narrow point of axis that Russia is working with there. Then on the map, and still in the Donbass region, as more Atesh partisan activity, as members of the anti-Kremlin and pro-Ukrainian group carried out further sabotage operations in Makivka of Donetsk. Partisans set fire to a relay cabinet on the railway, impacting crucial transportation and logistics for the Russian army as the relays managed track switches, signals, and communication between trains and central control systems, thereby hindering Russian military movements as these actions necessitate repairs. Then headed across to some news for today. So, Lanfranco Sorello, the architect behind Putin's palace, will become vice president of Sberbank, one of Russia's largest banks, overseeing all construction projects. Now, Sberbank CEO Herman Gref, who has been somewhat critical of Russia's economic performance resulting from Russia invading Ukraine, believes Sorello's expertise will enhance the bank's growth efforts across Russia. Although it may later come as no surprise to anyone that, after a little tenure, Sorello might just assume the top job within the financial institution, after an unexpected tea or window accident with the existing CEO. Now, Cirillo, born in Italy, has lived in Russia since the 1990s, has no financial background, and claims to have built homes for 43 Russian billionaires, aka oligarchs, including top managers from Gazprom and Novatek. So then, in 2014, Putin awarded him a Russian passport, with media reports suggesting a close relationship between himself and the Russian president. So this very much appears to be yet another classic Putin appointment, placing someone into a position of power for which they have no qualifications or experience for, as Russia continues the systemically flawed and corrupt system of cronyism or nepotism devoid of meritocracy. Then headed across to another Russian military mobilization blunder segment. So given the recent and large military sign-up bonus environment within Russia, well, as a soldier, it really depends on what time you got in and what location in Russia you came from. That determines how much these contract soldiers really get. For instance, one such Russian soldier recorded his gripes on this issue, stating, quote, "We get 40,000 rubles, and some of us get 15,000 rubles. 15. Most people cannot afford to provide for themselves." As he remarked about the more recent posters advertising 210,000 rubles for new enlistees. Now, back to some of this stuff about not being able to provide for themselves, as he said. So, essentially, soldiers who signed contracts earlier receive much smaller payments and are growing resentful about the situation. The Russian soldier also went on to say that he and others cannot afford to buy the things they need to go on combat missions because of those tiny sign-up bonuses. And so this is exactly what the Russian army is all about these days. Buy your own gear to go to war with. It's utterly ridiculous. And if you can't buy the supplies you need, well, you're on your own. There you have it. The Russian army, where your sign-in bonus determines if you're cannon fodder or slightly better equipped cannon fodder. Then to some brief lighter news from the Paris Olympics, where Russia finds itself largely absent from due to the previous doping scandals and for invading Ukraine, as Ukraine has been snatching up more medals with 2 gold, 2 silver and 3 bronze. With most recently 1 gold and 1 bronze for women's high jump, a bronze for men's hammer throw, and a silver on the parallel bars. Also noting that Yaroslava Mahusik, who secured gold in women's high jump clearing 2 meters, had, in a special moment, dedicated her success to Ukraine and its armed forces. Then headed across to a couple of quick funnies to finish things up today. So, for the first one, we received a still from a Ukrainian drone operator seemingly swooping in to Russian soldiers with their drones somewhere near the front, and only to find that the two-wheel army is at it again, using some sort of bicycle, e-bicycle, scooter, or large electric scooter for transportation, as any professional army surely would. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the full video come out for this one. Then headed across to a final funny to round it all off for today, guys. So this one's quite peculiar, okay? So in the occupied part of the Kherson region, reports indicate that starting today, the Russian commandant's office and military police will begin confiscating vehicles acquired by Russian soldiers through personal funds. That is just some next level desperation by the Russian army right there. First, they don't provide the sufficient transport needed, forcing you to buy your own. Then, they confiscate your transport from whatever sign-up bonus that enticed you to enlist in the first place. What a joke. Clearly, Russia is now making good on the return of a lot of those hefty sign-up bonuses they've been shelling out to entice enlistment. Yep, that's it. That's it right there. It's coming full circle now. Russia's found a way to recoup those payments by effectively absorbing back that cost by means of substandard non-military vehicles and completely ripping off their own soldiers in the process. Should have seen that coming. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please continue to like and comment. Once again, thanks for all of the support, and I really do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!